Here at Cedar Point, you're going to find 17 different adrenaline-inducing roller coasters, including 5 of them that could be considered the world's best. So I took on the Cedar Point Coaster Challenge and ranked each roller coaster at the park from worst to best. And coming in at number 17 is Wilderness Run. Opening in 1979 as the park's kiddie coaster, Wilderness Run still has that title. And I'm going to show my age with this one, but I remember my first time riding it way back when it was called Junior Gemini in 1993. This is a fun coaster for the kids, but that's about it. Now I know Cedar Point states that they have 18 different coasters, but I personally do not consider Pipe Scream a coaster. Number 16. Woodstock Express. This is a larger family coaster that is located directly across the midway from Wilderness Run. And this coaster is a fun ride that provides some medium-sized thrills for families. Number 15. The Cedar Creek Mine Ride. 1969 was a long time ago, and roller coaster technology wasn't the best back then, and that is why Cedar Creek Mine Ride ends up at this spot. It's a fun family coaster that offers 2 lift hills, a great setting, and a lot of jolting you all over the place. Number 14. Corkscrew. It opened as the first roller coaster in the world to flip riders upside down 3 different times, all while promising a headache to go along with the ride. Okay, maybe that's too harsh, but Corkscrew is an excellent coaster for the visuals, especially the corkscrews that travel over the midway. Here's a fun fact about Corkscrew. When my parents made me ride it back in 1993, when I was only 10 years old, it was my first experience dealing with a roller coaster that went upside down, and I was terrified. However, when I got off the ride, I loved it, and we rode it again and again. And while Corkscrew is still in operation, I do predict that Cedar Point has to have this plot of land on its radar for a future expansion within the next 10 years. I think this would be the perfect location for a mock extreme spinner. Just saying. Number 13, Wild Mouse. This was the first of how many Zamperla coasters that are going to grace the skyline at the point. While I only have one ride on this, it was fun, but honestly, unforgettable is a word that I would use to describe Wild Mouse. Families will love it, and when I take my kids up to the point, I will love riding the Wild Mouse with them. But I still think this next coaster is better. Number 12, Dragon Iron. Whoops, I mean Iron Dragon. While it's only one of 5 aero-suspended coasters left in operation, Cedar Point's Iron Dragon is always a fun ride. Opening in 1987, this coaster features 2 lift hills, a top speed of 40 miles an hour, and a fun twisted finale over the water. I really hope that Cedar Point will do whatever they can to keep Iron Dragon operating for decades to come. Number 11, the Gemini. It's crazy to think that Cedar Point offers 3 hybrid coasters, and Gemini is what I like to call the world's largest mine train coaster. After all, it's just like the other aero mine trains except much larger. This coaster is always a must ride when you visit Cedar Point. It offers a great first drop, a few good head choppers throughout the ride, and some decent airtime. But my big issue with Gemini is that on my last 3 visits to the point, it wasn't open. So I do worry about this 125 foot tall coaster's future, because this is a lot of room for future expansion. Number 10, Rougarou. After opening as Mantis in 1996, in which it debuted as the world's tallest, longest, and most twisted stand-up coaster in the world, the ride now offers more comfortable floorless trains, all while keeping the intense ride experience. And now, with the spike of Top Thrill 2 being located right where it is, Rougarou is now a must-ride attraction. Seriously, I highly recommend riding for the views of the spike as you go up the lift hill. Number 9, Valravn. It's kind of crazy to think that this 223 foot tall B&M dive coaster was the last major ground up coaster Cedar Point has added. Because remember, in 2018 the park transformed Mean Streak into Steel Vengeance, and then in 2024 Top Thrill Dragster into Top Thrill 2. This coaster keeps growing on me, and you must ride it for the views alone. There is no better dive coaster out there that offers views like this. Trust me on that. Now this next one might surprise you a little, but number 8 is Blue Streak. This coaster is seriously underrated. Operating since 1964, this out-and-back wooden coaster is smooth and features some great pops of airtime. While it is sad that Blue Streak is currently the only wooden coaster you're going to find at Cedar Point, at least it's a classic and runs wonderfully. Number 7. Gatekeeper. You're going to experience 7 inversions, 2 great near-miss elements, and amazing views of the beach. And not to mention all of Lake Erie and Cedar Point's front entrance. The more I ride Gatekeeper, the more I love it and appreciate this ride. TPR tip: I recommend riding on the right hand side if you're facing the train. That way you get flipped over as the train goes down the first drop. This sensation is just wild, and it's one of the best coaster elements at Cedar Point. Now this next coaster really does rule the sky. Number 6. Raptor. This iconic B&M inverted coaster opened in 1994 and still delivers an action-packed ride from start to finish. Get ready to get flipped upside down 6 times and enjoy a great helix, amazing interaction with the midway below, and a fantastic first drop. Raptor at Cedar Point is the best coaster you're going to find that is located near the front of the park. Now before I share with you the top 5 best roller coasters you're going to find at Cedar Point, if you're looking for some comfortable and affordable coaster gear to wear while you're at the parks, then please check out my online store, keepridingcoasters.com. I really do love seeing everyone wear their shirts around the parks, and I really do appreciate it. Number 5. Magnum XL-200. I know not everyone loves Magnum and its triangular shaped airtime hills. But come on, this was the world's first full circuit hypercoaster, and it's crazy to think that it's still this good, even though it opened way back in 1989. Magnum XL-200 offers some of the best views from any coaster, especially that first drop, because it's so high on a clear day you can see Canada. Now that really isn't 100% true, but it kinda is, since the Canadian border is only 12 miles from Magnum. But the land that you can't see off in the distance is actually Kelly's Island, and that is a part of Ohio. You will experience 3 tunnels on Magnum, which really do add to the ride experience, and after the coaster's smoothish turnaround, you will be in airtime heaven. TPR tip: I recommend riding Magnum in its magic seat, which is the first car, row 3. In other words, the 3rd row from the front. One of the best things about Cedar Point is how top tier their best coasters really are. And there really is a very good chance that your top 4 or even top 5 will be different than mine. So coming in at number 4 is Millennium Force. And back in 2000, I had the privilege to ride the world's first Giga coaster a week before the park opened on the Ohio State Day. And while I do prefer other Gigas, this ride is just plain fun. From the 310-foot tall cable lift hill to the 80-degree first drop, Millie is an iconic coaster that delivers every time. The views that you get as you're traveling up the lift hill of Lake Erie off to your left and Cedar Point to your right is truly breathtaking and one of my favorite things about Cedar Point. While some would argue that Millennium Force offers a boring layout, I would disagree, because you're going to experience 3 overbank turns, 3 airtime hills that give you a little bit of airtime, 2 tunnels, and a real sense of speed. In my opinion, Millennium Force is the best Giga in Ohio. Number 3. Steel Vengeance. Now I know what you're thinking, but let me explain. I love Steel Vengeance. It's a fantastic coaster, especially when the trims are turned off. But I just prefer Top Thrill 2 and Maverick more. In my opinion, I think Steel Vengeance just tries to do too much, and the second half of the coaster gets a little bit repetitive. While it's still a top 10 coaster for me, I find myself enjoying 2 others at the park more. That said, Steel Vengeance at night is on a whole new level, and I highly recommend it. Number 2. Maverick. Every time I ride Steel Vengeance and Maverick, I tend to flip-flop back and forth on which one I enjoy more. But there's something about Maverick, and I know I'm not the only one who thinks that. The way the small trains navigate the layout really just adds to the experience. I love the first drop, the zippy transitions, and then that airtime hill. Holy ejector. But for me, as much as I love the first half of Maverick, it's all about the ride's second half. And once the train goes into the second launch tunnel, this is where Maverick becomes top tier. The ending is just a blur of insanity and adrenaline, and that is why it is my second favorite coaster at Cedar Point. with number 1 belonging to Top Thrill 2. Now you might be thinking, of course, a popular coaster YouTuber will be sucking up to Cedar Point and overhyping their new coaster. Trust me, that is not the case at all here. You can see my honest review of Top Thrill 2 in this video right here. But I'm going to be honest with you, Top Thrill 2 really is that good, and Zamperla and Cedar Point knocked it out of the park. And after 4 rides on it, 2 in the very front and 2 in the very back, I can honestly say that there's no other coaster at Cedar Point that I would rather ride right now. If you're like me and you love tall and fast roller coasters, then you will also love Top Thrill 2 the way I do. Cedar Point made Top Thrill Dragster a more complete ride experience with Top Thrill 2. And as more people get to ride the park's new Scream Machine, they will really appreciate the ride as well. Words cannot describe just how awesome that spike is and the airtime that you get as you go down the top hat. If you are looking for the best times to visit Cedar Point to avoid the crowds, then be sure to watch this video as you can see at the bottom of your screen. This way, you can avoid some of the crowds. So how do your Cedar Point coaster rankings compare to mine? Please let me know in the comments, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to smile today, think positive, and keep riding coasters.